My great-grandfathers, James and Eleanor, died about 20 years ago. Their house, old and dilapidated, had to be razed to the ground and rebuilt. The biohazard causes were serious, threatening health and life. For many years, this house was a symbol of our family, linking generations and memories. After the death of my great-grandfathers, I, Alyssa, lived with my mom Laura for a time at my late grandmother's house. Her boyfriend Tom and his son Jack lived with us. However, the relationship between me and Tom and Jack was gradually deteriorating. Tensions were growing by the day. I was disrespected and made out to be the villain, while Jack was the perfect angel. Finally, I got fed up and decided to move out and get my own apartment. But despite the move, I often went back to my mum's house, leaving the house as soon as one of them returned. Work on the project house began. We decided to restore it with our own efforts, to make it a place where our family could gather again. For 5 years, we, myself, Tom, Jack, and Laura, put all of our time and effort into this house. Every day was filled with labor, arguments, and hopes for a better future. However, the question arose, who would get the house, me or Jack? After much debate and discussion, it was decided that I would get the house. This decision was made for many reasons. I lived alone. Jack refused to pay rent, even though it was in the contract he signed with my mom and Tom, and most importantly, it was my great-grandparents' house. Now I live in my mini dream home, a small 2-bedroom cottage, about 900 square feet. These 4 months have been happy and peaceful, but fate decided to throw in a new challenge. My half-sister, Melissa, suddenly decided to come back into our lives. She dated a guy for a few months and then cheated on him and started living with the new guy she cheated on him with. This scenario has been repeated 7 or 8 times now. She has a child who is about 5 years old, and she carries him with her from one unstable situation to another. The child's father, Robert, is stable and wants to take care of him, but Melissa won't let him. Recently, Melissa started calling her father, Tom, asking for permission to move in with him. Tom refused, saying he didn't have room for her, the baby, and her horses. Melissa is more concerned about her horses than her own child. A week passed, and Melissa called again, asking Tom to pick up the horse trailer. Tom asked where she thought the huge trailer could be put, and she said, "Behind Alice's house." Tom suggested she ask me, to which she replied that I would definitely say no. This only confirmed her realization of her own wrongness. Another week later, Melissa threw a tantrum demanding my house. She was indignant. Why should Alyssa have to live in a nice 2-bedroom house when she doesn't have kids or even a boyfriend? Melissa's mum, Tom's ex-wife, Karen, sided with her, yelling at Tom to give the house to Melissa. Eventually, Tom got into an argument with my mum, claiming that it was really unfair. I'm an only child who has worked for everything he has. The house is the only thing I've ever been handed, and I helped pay to rebuild it. I put my whole soul and money into it because it was what I really wanted. Melissa and Jack always got everything they wanted, when they wanted it, but not the house. Standing on the doorstep of their little cottage, I realized I had to take a firm stand. My half-sister can't kick me out of my house. This place is not just walls and a roof. It is a symbol of my struggle, my efforts, and my hopes, and I am willing to fight for it to the end. After the beginning of my conflict with Tom and Jack, I began to think about why people so easily betray their own principles and morals for material gain. I had always been raised to respect my elders and take care of my family, but in this situation, it appeared that neither of those rules worked. It was especially painful when it came to family members. I remembered how, as a child, my mother and I often spent time at my grandmother's house helping her with chores and listening to her stories about the past. She talked about how her parents, James and Eleanor, had worked hard to build the house and how they had overcome many hardships. These stories became part of my childhood, building in me a deep respect for our family's history. When the remodeling of the house began, I felt like I was bringing back lives, not only to this house, but to a piece of our family's history. My mum, Tom, Jack, and I spent days and nights working to restore every detail. It was a long and arduous process, but each day brought the satisfaction of knowing we were making a difference. But the more invested I became in this house, the more I felt the injustice of my family starting to fall apart over ownership disputes. I saw how greed and envy turned people into monsters. Tom and Jack, whom I had once considered almost family, were now strangers to me. Their behavior was unbearable, and it made me question what a real family means. One of the most painful moments was realizing that my half-sister, Melissa, with whom we once had a good relationship, had become my enemy. Her constant cheating, irresponsible behavior, and indifference to her own child were incomprehensible and unacceptable to me. Her attempts to take over the house I was helping to rebuild were the last straw for me. Melissa and her child, Oliver, often came to visit us when he was an infant. I remember babysitting him, reading him books, and playing games with him. It was a shock to me to see her neglect his needs for her own whims. Oliver deserved better, and I couldn't stand by when his mother failed him, time and time again. Meanwhile, Tom and my mum, Laura, continued to fight over the house situation. Mum tried to support me and my position despite everything, but the pressure from Tom and Melissa was too much. I could see her suffering, trying to keep the peace in the family, but also protecting me. Every morning as I woke up in my little cottage, I felt the weight of responsibility for this house fall on my shoulders. It wasn't just a house, it was a legacy, a symbol of resilience and overcoming hardship. And I couldn't let anyone destroy it. My days were filled with working and taking care of the house. I learned to do many things with my hands, from minor repairs to gardening. These activities became not only a necessity for me, but also a way for me to cope with stress and tension. I found comfort in the fact that I was continuing the work of my ancestors, that my labor was not in vain. At this time, my relationship with my mother became even closer. We often sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea, sharing thoughts and memories. She would tell me about her childhood, about how her parents built this house, about the difficulties they had to overcome. These stories gave me the strength to keep fighting. Meanwhile, the tension between Tom and Jack and me was growing. They made no secret of their displeasure that I had gotten the house. Their unkind glances and barbs were part of my daily life. I tried to ignore it, but it was hard. It was especially hard to see Jack, who I had once considered almost a brother, turn into a jealous and spiteful person. On one of those days, Melissa came to visit me. She looked tired and upset. On her doorstep stood little Oliver, sad-eyed, holding on to his mother's hand. Melissa started the conversation by saying that she needed help, that she was having trouble living again, and that she wanted to move in with me. I realized she wasn't saying this out of desperation, but out of a desire to get something that wasn't hers. We talked for a long time, and I tried to explain to her that the house was not just an asset, but part of our family, part of our history. Melissa didn't listen. She was only interested in her own convenience and benefits. In the end, I had to turn her down. It was a hard decision, but I knew I had to protect what I held dear. This situation left a deep mark on my heart. I felt betrayed and disappointed. But at the same time, I realized that I couldn't let those feelings break me. I had to keep fighting, to keep defending my home and my family. A few months passed, and the tensions slowly began to subside. Tom and Jack realized that I wasn't giving up and began to accept my right to this house. Melissa continued to live her life, making more mistakes, but I hoped that someday she would realize her actions and change. In the meantime, my mum and I continued to work on the house, making it even cozier and more beautiful. We added new elements while still keeping the vintage spirit of the house. This process became not only work for us, but also a way for us to bond and strengthen our relationship. In the end, I realized that the house was not only a physical place, but a symbol of my resilience, my strength, and my belief in a better future. I wasn't just protecting the walls and roof, I was protecting my dreams, my legacy, and my family. And that made me stronger, helped me to cope with any difficulties and challenges. If you love to listen to exciting life stories, subscribe to my channel. I publish new audio stories every day, which open before you amazing moments and destinies of people. Join, and don't forget to recommend us to your friends so that they can enjoy interesting stories every day.